Well, this is out of the blue now, isn't it? A Christian ranting about the teachings of abstinence. Contrary to popular belief, Christianity and God are not against sex. Sure, there are rules with specifications of it being kept in marriage between man and woman, along with not committing adultery. Is that it then? Is that all there is to it? Nope, churches like to teach the horrors of having coitus before saying your vows, as well as the spread of STDs. That's all well and good, but there's another message that they teach that really had me in the ropes for years. Still does in a way. You ready for it? Any and all types of sexual fantasies are bad. God forbid you get aroused or rather turned on by something you come across. I don't know how many conversations I've had with people about their experiences with their youth pastors telling them what they should do if they should become aroused. Because, you know, Colossians 3:5, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. Sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is adultery. This is just one verse that is used to claim that any type of sexual fantasy or arousal is bad. If we really look at the verse and the word that was there in the beginning in place of sexual immorality, which is fornication, we will find that this verse means something completely different. The Bible, with its language, has been modified for people to understand it better. Fornication, meaning two people having sex outside of marriage, was replaced with sexual immorality in the later prints of the Bible. Just a little footnote for you there. Anyway, the verse is referring to one's thoughts in the Bible have been used to demean or demonize the growth of sexual feelings. Usually when sex is taught, especially by the church, it is taught that it's basically penis and vagina without going into any detail. Then it is followed by how bad it is to have sex outside of marriage, but that's it. The train stops there. It is never explained what contraceptives are and what they're used for. It is never explained that when your body starts to go through puberty, that not only does your body change, but so does your mind. Meaning, as your body matures during this horrendous yet confusing teenage years, you begin to pick up on things or notice certain things about the opposite sex that you hadn't thought of before. Your body becomes aroused, and you either want something done to you, or you want to do something to someone of the opposite sex. Now, I will admit that this particular video for me is a bit awkward, as these are things I've never really discussed or talked about before outside of close friends, but I feel it's really important. Very recently, I was given a book by a Christian author, Dr. Douglas E. Rosnu, titled A Guide to Enjoying God's Gift of Sexual Intimacy, a Celebration of Sex, with a chapter in there titled The Joy of Fantasy. Thumbing through this chapter and making sure I understood exactly what it said, I came to discover that I had been misled into shame this entire time by previous people or messages. This particular chapter discussed that it's important to have a fantasy life in regards to your spouse and to be careful that you don't have fantasies of other people while making love to your spouse, as it takes away from them and demeans them. It also used verses like this. 1 Peter 1:13-14. Therefore, prepare your minds for action. Keep sober in spirit. Fix your hope completely on the grace to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the former lusts which were yours in your ignorance. And this one, James 1:14-15. Each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then, when desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. Romans 12:2 is also a reference which talks about being transformed by the renewing of your mind, accompanied by Ephesians 4:23, which advises to be renewed in the spirit of your mind. All these verses are used to point in the direction that sexual fantasies, or rather sexual desire, is not wrong at all. It's just how you use that desire. Such things are never discussed during teen years. It's expected that once teenagers are taught abstinence, that they won't even try sex for themselves because of all the dangers and horrors of having sex outside of marriage. Granted, it is important and does have an impact when you save yourself from marriage. Now, not everyone is able to do it. I wasn't and had no idea what I was getting myself into. I won't go into detail, but looking back at my first time, there's much that I didn't understand. The knowledge I have now and am continuing to study and gather would have been a great help back then. Because I was told that my sexual growth, the effects of it, were shameful and lustful without any explanation or further detail, that entire side of me has become dead. There are other factors that have contributed to that as well. With sex, especially women, sex is more mental than physical. If your mind can't get into the mood, that's going to relay down to the rest of your body, leaving you either depressed or bewildered. I know that there are people saying, Why the hell are you sharing this? This is uncomfortable and awkward. I'd rather not have this talk. It's important to have such a discussion due to neither church or secular sex ed referring to it. I've already explained the way that the church teaches it, now for the secular sex ed. They too do preach abstinence, and when more information is given, the importance of arousal and sexual fantasies are not discussed, or even what they're for. No details or boundaries are given. All that is really discussed is the physical side of sex as well as the use of contraceptives and what they are. That is all well and good too, but once again, secular sex ed also lacks important information. Sexual growth for both one's emotions and mind are not discussed at all, leaving teenagers, much more young people, with very little knowledge and to just follow their impulses. You want to know why their bodies are going freaking nuts during puberty? It's not just them maturing physically or mentally. The sexual side of them has been birthed and is growing. It needs to be disciplined and learn what is healthy and what is not. Take for instance porn. Many people will stand behind that because A, it keeps men from going crazy or raping, and B, it's an easy way to satisfy their needs. In reality, all it teaches men is that sex is easy with no dedication or practice, and that gratification is the only goal for sex. You have doctors as well as other health professionals stand behind the use of porn. I have even been told to use porn as a reference for sexual positions. Just know, hell no. With women, porn will teach them that they need to be a certain way and that there is no dedication involved with sex. I do believe that is how the sexual emancipation movement came about, with the thought in mind that women should be sexually free. What a farce. Without proper and real sexual education, you get these types of problems along with many more. Also, I was given a revelation about porn from God. In all my struggles with sex, the one thing I never wanted to do was mimic anything from porn. Ever. So with that being said, I couldn't wrap my brain around being sexual or expressing certain things because I thought I was mimicking porn, when in reality, it's the stark opposite. Porn mimics sex. Porn twists sex into a selfish, satisfying oneself and focusing on that individual's gratification only. It takes the form of a woman, her body, and turns it into a tool for self-gratification. The revelation of porn that God gave me was this. Porn and sex look the same but are completely different. Porn has no emotion, no connection, no trust, no vows or dedication, and no effort. Sex has all those things when both man and wife are willing to learn and be open with each other. Now, with all that being said, that is only one problem that can come from just abstinence only sex ed. Shame can set in, causing one to view sex with disgust. Confusion can also set in due to not having the information to delve into why certain pulses or desires are present. Having a low libido or having no interest in sex whatsoever can come about too. Being asexual or having a lack of interest in sex is abnormal and unhealthy. That's not how we were created. That's not the design God has for anyone. Now, there are people that are called to celibacy, which is different, and yes, those people have no relationship and no sex, but that is rare. God made man and woman two halves that are to be brought together as a whole, one flesh. My point is that no one teaches sex right or what's involved with it. Due to the way society's been going, secular sex ed has been backpedaling on their teachings, not to mention trying to throw things in there for PC's sake. With the integration of the LGBT agenda or curriculum, the original teachings of sex ed, I can only imagine, are getting a new overhaul, which is not really surprising. With the church and Christianity overall, what's usually taught on their end is problematic, just in a different way, as I've already explained when it comes to teenagers. You can find all sorts of Christian books on marriage and what's involved with intimacy, but that's after the fact and not before. There needs to be a prelude to these teachings aside from, oh, it's bad outside of marriage, you can get unwanted pregnancy and spread of STDs. It's not enough to teach abstinence. That's only one part of marriage, really, and honestly, not a big part of marriage. In fact, it has nothing to do with marriage at all. Practicing and teaching abstinence is to encourage younger people to keep themselves for their spouse, but you have to keep it going by providing why and what it all means. Sex isn't just orgasmic or pleasuring, it's work. It's being vulnerable to another person. It allows you to express yourself with another person that you've never been able to do before. Are there unhealthy sexual behaviors? Yes, and sex is figuring out what works for both husband and wife. There are healthy sexual behaviors and there are unhealthy sexual behaviors. The 4 rules of sex I have are this. 1 is between husband and wife, married under God. 2, it does not humiliate either partner or bring them pain. Now, when it first goes down, the woman can experience pain from her hymen tearing, though this does not happen all the time. 3. Both husband and wife treat each other with respect and are open with each other. Communication and trust are big factors and are a must. 4. This one could be another version of 2, I guess, maybe even 3, but there's trust. Sex is very much an art form and can be a misunderstood art form. Some of you are probably laughing, but I know that there's a lot of people that can relate to what's being said here. If there are any parents watching this, please, for the love of God and for your children's sake, please have a serious and full talk with your young people and teens about sex with all the ins and outs. I know the discussion itself can be awkward, but please don't let your own sexual problems dictate what you tell your children. And don't try to use scare tactics either. You have no idea what you're doing to them when the only things discussed about sex are STDs and the dangers of it outside of marriage. Those things are important, but so is why their bodies getting aroused and what role sexual fantasies play. Explain healthy sexual behaviors versus bad. Explain the difference. Talk to them about contraceptives and about birth control. Oh, and while I'm on the subject of birth control, to the morons that stick their teenage daughters on it against their will so they don't get pregnant, you have no idea what you're doing to their bodies. It's highly recommended that women be on birth control for 2 years, then take a break. Birth control can jack up her body, messing with her hormones, cause her to gain weight, and to lose her hair. Birth control in general is not wrong, but when misused or overused, it can cause serious problems. Also, using the wrong type of birth control can be problematic as well. Don't be stupid with your children when it comes to sex ed or birth control. Teenagers are dumb and will do stupid shit. This is fact. Keep information from them and they will find it for themselves, but they won't always find the right information. There's so much twisted shit out there in regards to sexual expression and relationships. If you guys don't teach them right and recognize that their sexual side of them is growing, the world will. Scare tactics and shaming can cause problems for their future marriage. It can cause intimacy problems leading up to relationship problems. Shame, fear, disgust, and confusion set in and can. Please use your brains and don't let your own shame and confusion speak for you. I understand you're freaking out. Dads, your daughters can become pregnant and is now attracting young men. Moms, your son can impregnate a young woman and now has girls eyeing him. Let them grow up. You can't just expect them to keep that part of them shut off or concealed, then get married and go, oh, it's okay now. That's bullshit and it's unrealistic. Young people, teenagers, hear me and hear me good. Right now you're in that phase of trying to figure out what is what. You're on the tipping point, the door of the adult world. This is a very confusing time for a lot of you. Now when it comes to sex, if you have yet to have the talk, find someone who's older and who you trust if your parents won't. Yes, I'm telling you to find trusted sources if your parents won't talk with you about it. You need to know with all the ins and outs involved. All the way from what it really means between husband and wife to the use of contraceptives and what birth control is and all the pros and cons of using it. It's important. It's normal for you to get aroused and to have sexual fantasies. It's normal to want to follow your impulses. Girls, it's important to know where you can go for help if you do wind up pregnant. I'm not encouraging abortions by any means, but if you can't go to your parents, find a pregnancy crisis center or one of those medical centers that helps women with unwanted pregnancies. You need to know this. Young men, you need to know what's involved when having sex with women, especially now with all this feminism crap going around. I'm not going to touch on the subject of masturbation for you guys because I'm clearly not a guy and never had a penis, so how the hell would I know the struggles of that? I would encourage you to go to a trusted male and to talk and discuss what you can do to handle random boners. Just from what my husband has told me, you guys seem like you have a hard time keeping it concealed in women, and it causes you physical pain when you don't release. I'm not going to just tell you to pray away because that's bullshit. Your body's having a normal function. I'm not going to encourage porn either because that addiction will screw up your future relationship and give you a false representation of sex. Also, young people, if your pastor, whether it be youth or main, tells you that sexual fantasies are wrong, any and all, and tries to shame you from arousal, if they tell you it's wrong to get aroused or just badmouth sex altogether, if they use nothing but scare tactics and don't give you any real information, please run the hell away from them. I'm dead serious. Don't let anyone shame you from asking questions. If you have to look up stuff on your own, fine. Please though, do be careful. Honestly, I'd rather have you guys asking questions and coming across something erotic than shut that part of you off due to shame and fear. I know that sounds extreme, but I really mean it. A lot of people really don't understand just how important sex is. I'm not the best teacher for it as I'm a victim of Abstinence Only Sex-Ed. Laugh if you want, but this teaching can have some real detrimental effects. Run away from anyone that tells you that sex is bad or disgusting. Please. To some, this video may be extreme, but I feel that it was important important to make. It's been on my heart for a while. Information regarding sex is important, and not just the physical part or the preventative part, but also the emotional and mental, along with the spiritual for those who believe in God. People, God is not against sex. There's an entire book in the Bible dedicated to it, Song of Solomon. Looking back at my struggles and when my sexual side first woke up, I had no freaking clue what was going on, and no one ever thought I needed that information. I was told that any sexual fantasy was bad and that sex outside of marriage was wrong, along with STDs. That's it. Had I the knowledge back then that I do now, things would be different, and I feel I wouldn't have had some of the struggles I have now. There is a such thing as healthy exposure to sex, and it does depend on one's maturity. Depending on one's experiences in life thus far, it can make them afraid, confused, not interested, disgusted, etc. Being a past victim of abuse myself, being that intimate with another person for me, for a while, scared the living hell out of me. Now I have to figure out how to access that part of me again. I know I'm not alone. This is one of the hardest yet most vulnerable videos I've ever made. For those of you who can relate, we have to overcome the lies that we were told and maybe seek proper help. Well, I think that's enough for now. Some people may find this funny or hilarious, but that's because either they don't know any better or they just didn't experience this type of struggle, so to them it seems strange. That's fine. I've come across those people before. It's a normal reaction, really. They're not scared of that part of them and enjoy it, so this struggle makes no sense to them why we do struggle with it and are scared or possibly disgusted or maybe even ashamed. I appreciate your guys' time. What are some of your experiences? What did you guys do? Did you have the knowledge that you needed, or are you still trying to get it? Let me know in the comments below. Your humble host, out.